morning, everybody. Hope you're feeling really good today. My hair is a little crazy. Good morning or good
Hello.
evening to you.
Yeah, for me it's 11 p.m., so good evening.
Thanks for doing this time.
Yeah, yeah, I had a great day, so it's a nice way to end it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's just early morning here in California.
Well, nice to see you. It's been a while, huh?
I know, right? It's been so long. It's good to see you too. How's your travels been?
Good. I am enjoying Bali. I have a house here that I'm really loving and hung out with some awesome friends today and doing a lot of cool work and yeah, really letting it flow.
That's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. How long have you been out of the States for now?
Um, Probably about 7 months or something like that.
My gosh, that's so exciting.
Yeah,
Feeling it. I love it.
yeah. And yeah, I'm a little bit slow because I'm a little tired, but yeah, I'm excited. Oh, there's an insect flying around my room. So yeah, I'm excited about diving in with you. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah, I thought a good topic that we could talk about today would be conscious uncoupling because it's something that I've been working on, which is funny enough because whenever I talk about it, I'm like, oh yeah, well there's like the conscious part, but then there's like the couple things that I did that weren't so conscious. But I remember you spoke a lot about it in the over the past couple of years, and I always got so uh, like such great like feelings from all of the information that you shared and moving I think collectively from a place of this like cutting off any rigid separation separation to a place of more mutualistic beneficial detachment. I think it's the big thing that a lot of people are struggling with right now, self included, because living a consciously couple takes practice, and uh, there's only one way to practice.
Totally. Yeah. So well, I mean, do you have any uh, if you feel comfortable sharing like any specific aspects that you found to be challenging, as I just plug in my headphone here, I could, I don't know what kind of challenges people have in that area, and so, if we can touch upon something, or if someone watching wants to comment a challenge about that, that'd be good too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to share mine because I'm definitely the blocker kind of type. It's just for me, like when I'm out of a relationship, I'm like, okay, great, like this is beautiful, but like I'm gonna go this way, you're gonna go that way, and that's how things are gonna be. Um, but what sparked this newfound need to not do this is I had an ex pass away recently, and it was an ex from a very long time ago. And so there had been like a lot of time and a lot of space and like no bad vibes at all. But I thought about it and I was like, oh my God, like what if one of the last two people I had been with, which didn't end well at all, and like which are blocked, and I have had these negative endings with, what if they died? And I saw that Instagram or I got that phone call, and this is where I'd left that shit at. Like I literally was like so uncomfortable and horrified by my decisions of doing that
Hmm.
I went and like that day, and actually one of them had hit me up that day, and it was like really, it's a small world
Yeah,
synchronicity.
wow. Yeah.
And so, and I had them blocked on everything, but
Mhm.
except for like Facebook. So one of them happened to hit me up on Facebook that day, and then I unblocked them from everything and texted another one and said my whole spiel about like what I was going through with the passing of my former partner and like how it was made me feel and how I would feel if, something like that had happened to them. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like this amazing conversation. And I think the main thing for me is the fact that like it there's this whole thing, it's like it's not either you conscious uncouple or you don't. It's like you have to find the healthy balance. And I think people really think it is that polarity kind of approach, like there's only one way to do it right. And I really want to stress that there's like many ways to do it right. Like for me, like I do need that 30 plus days of no communication whatsoever. But then after that, like I do find myself being able to handle situations a little more appropriately. Um, but then I also noticed, like after that, there is that very I don't know, maybe we'll call it like the danger zone, where you can easily get wrapped back up in intimacy or into sexual feelings, or, you know, into sexual intimacy. And then that can really put you back a couple steps. And I think everybody's done that at least like once in their life, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so it is something on. But that's kind of like where I'm at with the whole thing.
Cool. Yeah. So, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate your transparency, and it helps everybody. And so, one of the most important principles that I think really confuses people is, you know, people have a desire to do things in a conscious way. People have a desire to do things in a kind way, you know, to be kind to themselves, to be kind to the other person. And in attempting that, the real danger is when someone thinks, here's what a good person would do, and here's what a bad person would do, right? And so people have ideas about right and wrong, good and bad. And in those ideas, it makes it hard for them to know what to do because they're like, well, bug just hit my head. Because they think, here's what I want, and here's what a good person would do, and they're different things. So I must not be a good person because I want the wrong thing, right? So
Yes.
really the root of this generally is, you know, talk about this a lot. The root of this is generally religious programming, guilt conditioning, um, you know, fear of being a bad boy or a bad girl. And um, so because of that, there's this codependent dynamic where people don't have healthy boundaries and they don't have a healthy yes, they don't have a healthy no that they wholeheartedly believe in. And so they have a 70% no, or they have a 60% yes, or something like that. And it creates this really fuzzy gray area where it's kind of like, well, I don't want to sleep with you unless I'm really desperate, or I don't want to talk with you unless I'm really lonely. And so the boundaries get really blurred. And so one of the most important things that I like to talk about, I just made a video about this recently, is how to discover what your needs are so that you can get what you need, so you can give yourself what you need instead of needing to have a partner in order to feel that need being met.
Exactly. And so many people just unconsciously kind of living angrily at their partners who aren't meeting their needs. And they're like, how can you not read my mind? You know, it's like, how does he not know that this is what I need? And I've done this so many times. And then I'm like, well, how the fuck would he ever know that if I've never said it or I've
Mm-hmm.
never communicated it?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's not like subliminal message communicating, because that gets tricky too. You're like, well, I've given all the hints that this is what I need. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you need to like write it down on paper, like, you know, make
Spell it
it
out.
solid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so like, and just to get really um, how do I say it? To get really specific about what I'm talking about in needs is always a vibrational thing. So anyone who's watching this now or in the future, here's a practice that I shared in my video on the same topic recently, but I'll share it again, is if you're sitting there by yourself, imagine how it would feel to have your um, to have a potential lover or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or an ex-lover or a future lover come over and sit right next to you. Okay, just imagine that. And then imagine how it would feel to have them start stroking your hair, to have them hold your hand. And if you notice, just imagining that starts to feel good, right? And so that's a way to show yourself, to actually prove that this is a vibrational need that's being met. It doesn't have anything to do with the person actually being there, because if you can just imagine it and it starts to meet your need, then it's showing you that you actually have the ability to tap into those very specific vibrations to meet that need on purpose by yourself, right?
I love it.
So if we call that need that's being met um, presence, love, you know, keeping yourself company, providing care for your heart, providing ease and comfort for your body, whatever you want to call that, it's possible for you to do it without your partner, without a partner. And so that is what we end up we're essentially using people, and not in a bad way, but the reason we have partnerships is to use people to give us that love, because at some level we refuse to give it to ourselves. And that's why this exercise with a partner sitting next to us, imagining that, opens the gateway to allowing ourselves to give the love to ourselves that we normally refuse.
That's really well said. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't haven't probably ever thought about. And it does make me want to ask you the question, for myself and maybe anyone else who watches this, like, what is a partner? What is the point of having a partner? Because maybe a lot of people might have the wrong intentions, or I mean, it could just be down to like the basic belief system or programming, of the point that like you're supposed to go to college, find someone, get married, have kids, die, like that whole
Mm-hmm.
kind of lifestyle, which is definitely changing, and the norms are shifting like really
Mm-hmm.
rapidly. So what
Mm-hmm.
would you say is the purpose of having a healthy partner?
Well, most people, realistically, most people have a ways to go to unravel their codependency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it can be very difficult to unravel codependency on your own. So doing that with a coach or with a partner can be a very effective way of doing it. However, it's really helpful to get, if you're going to get into a relationship, it's really helpful to be really clear with yourself and to understand, I am going to have a codependent relationship. It's going to happen because I haven't unraveled my codependency. And have this conversation up front with a partner. We haven't unraveled our internal codependent dynamics. It's not our fault. This is the way society works right now. It's passed
Hmm.
down to us from our parents. So we're going to have codependent aspects of a relationship. Do you want to help each other? This is a teamwork event. We are basically each other's coaches to help each other unravel that. And if you want to sign up specifically for that purpose, that's what this partnership is for.
Thank you so much for, saying that specific conversation. Because I think if people went in and like said those actual words, and had that clear of communication, things could be moving, in a lot different energetic vibration with relationships. Whereas I think it can get really like misconstrued with the whole, hey, so I have some baggage that I'm, bringing into this relationship. Just letting you know, oh, I can handle you. Okay, we're good, we're good. 6 months down the road, people are ripping each other's eyes out, and you're like, I told you I had baggage, and they're like, you didn't tell me it was this much shit. And then, it kind of turns into what would then become a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think you specifically saying that conversation adds that whole other layer of, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is why, because of our society. And this is where we're going to need to hold each other's hands and like look each other in the eye and like work through these fucking flames, because otherwise, like, this relationship will burn to the ground.
Yeah. And oftentimes, even if you know it's codependent, and even if you know that these things happening are happening and are going to happen, the relationship may still come to an end because you may have helped each other as much as you could. So,
Exactly.
right. So there's not necessarily, um, a relationship that doesn't last a long time isn't necessarily unsuccessful, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it can be very useful to have a 2 month, a 6 month relationship. That can be extremely useful. And then the grieving process that you go through afterward, of course, it's very, very painful. Like, this is like the most painful experience someone can have. And it's very helpful too. So if you really, I think my last relationship, I cried for like a month straight, and I really loved it, and I let myself, and I took advantage of it, and I actually recorded on audio. I recorded myself crying so that anytime I feel a little bit of that blockage come up again, I can play that recording and it can actually help facilitate me getting back into that space. So this is a very powerful alchemy that we have access to, and ending a relationship, as painful as it is such an opportunity for transformation, for adulting.
Right, for adulting. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us have like had those experiences where you've gotten out of a painful relationship, and you've kind of like finally got to that place in your head and energetically where you're like, okay, I'm accepting, like, you've released that attachment for real. And then like the next couple days, like, you see the things start opening up that are going to then fill that space, and you're like, oh my god, like, look at this business partner I just met, or like, look at this new connection, or like, look at this new healer I just got in touch with, and then these things start happening and you get a little excited, but you're like, but wait, I'm supposed to be upset about this horrible ending with so and so, but you see the kind of beauty of it. And I think like once you finally get to that place, that's kind of like one of those beautiful signs of the universe where you're like, okay, all this work I've been doing is like finally showing up in like a really, productive way in one of these like horribly painful situations and
Hmm.
circumstances.
Yeah. And really beautifully put. Let me share another aspect of it too, which is really powerful, is the kind of like the example I gave earlier, like your partner sits next to you, you can feel them. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so if you can create the vibrational experience of imagining your partner sitting next to you, it's because the reason you're attracted to this partner or to any partner is because they have qualities that you also have access to that they are teaching you to embody. And so when you split, when you go separate directions, and when you grieve the loss of that person, the grief you're releasing is actually making space for you to embody the superpowers and the abilities and the things that you were attracted to in that person. You learn how to embody those very vibrations in yourself.
Exactly. I love using like the mirror concept in situations like this because it's always funny because especially the qualities, like I'm just thinking about my former partner, that would irritate me the most when I would really sit down with my coach or with myself and be like, God, that thing he does is so annoying. I would have to like take a big, nice breath in and an exhale out because I'm like, wow, I do that too. Like, in
Mm-hmm.
this way. And it's so funny. Or like someone does like what he's doing to me, I do to someone else in the exact same like emotional vibration, maybe not in the same relationship dynamic, but I'm like, oh, there's the same control aspect. There's the same manipulation aspect going on in one place where it just gets mirrored out, and projected somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's again like those learning situations where after the relationship I had a lot of time to think and to like go through each individual thing, and I got to really kind of like unravel it, notice where it showed up in my life, notice where I liked it and where I didn't like it, and kind of got to like fizzle away the timelines that it wasn't really working with.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, yeah, imagine as a woman, for example, imagine there's um, a guy that you're attracted to, and he's really assertive. Like that's the quality that you admire in him. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like, oh, that guy is hot. He knows what he wants. He's like gung ho. He's working hard. He's like doing his thing. He's got his mission all lined up. You know, so as a woman, you might think like, I like that. I want more of that in my life. I want to be around this guy. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
in a relationship with him, and then you split apart, and then you're grieving the loss of him, and the very specific grief you're feeling at that point is, now what am I going to do? I no longer have access to that assertive, mission driven vibration. And now I'm feeling the pain of that missing in my life. And now the pain is so incredibly obvious to me, I have no choice. I can no longer ignore that missing in my life, and I have no choice but to embody it myself.
Yes, the integration.
And so it's actually, he has taught you, in this case, he has taught you the vibration that you were craving. He has taught you how to embody it, and then it transfers over.
Totally. Like I just had a little vision in my head of like your partner like watering this seed in you that they see in you, even if you don't see it in yourself. And
Yeah,
then the breakup is, the blooming of that flower where you're like, they're gone and I'm left with this flower of whatever quality. And then
yeah,
you have to like love it,
totally, exactly.
whether that takes, a month or,
Hmm.
a year.
Exactly. And so,
Mm-hmm.
someone watching this might also wonder, do I need to break up with my partner in order to get that benefit? Right? That can be really
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah. And we don't want to give the wrong impression.
Right. So, what's interesting about that is that every relationship regardless of how long it lasts, has grief cycles. So you can technically stay in a relationship with a partner, but you can still break up with the first version of your agreement.
Yes, that's a wonderful thing to bring up.
Yeah. You can
I
still
think,
transition into relationship version 2.0 and then version 3.0. And these grief cycles are disconnections of codependent energies.
and when you're saying this, are you assuming that like the couple would be discussing this and kind of being like the way you have an ego death with yourself? You'd be like, okay, well, this part of me is dying. We're releasing it. You know, for me, it almost sounds like the ceremonial thing. Like with my next partner, I would love it to be like a sage burning, like burning some papers kind of thing with a fire and letting that go and having that conversation instead of the polarity aspect of like, we've had one problem and he's doing a different path of life and we're not on the same path anymore, so this whole thing's over today, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it really depends how aware each partner is and what kind of depth they've gone to in their shadow work, because some people are very identified with their emotions and make rash decisions when someone, offends their nervous system, and they identify with their nervous system, and so it becomes all messy. But
Mm-hmm.
if both people are conscious enough to um, make decisions outside of the temptations of their triggers, then there's going to be a lot more possibility for healthy teamwork and deeper integration. And that's where there's a lot of juice for real compatibility and real up leveling together, because each person has specifically signed up for that. And so they're like, wow, I signed up for this process. It's working. A lot of pain is coming up. I actually hate you right now. Like, my system hates you right now. I'm not taking it personally, because that's what this whole process is for, is to hate you and experience how much I hate you, and letting that come to my awareness so that eventually it will dissolve. And then when it's no longer so painful, we can go frolic in the grass again.
Yes,
That's the grief cycle.
it is, it really is. Takes time, lots of time and patience with yourself and with
Hmm.
your emotions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, patience with your emotions is really key, because it can feel like, oh my God, I'm literally going to die. Or, oh my God, this is never going to end. I need to kill this person or move to a different country,
Yeah.
right? So it's really like faith that you'll survive the feeling. And it what really makes the relationship compatible is like both people have that faith, and both people can see the truth even if they can't feel the truth.
Exactly. And speaking upon that topic of when you can like feel the truth, I think something that I've been seeing a lot of people struggle with, like with my clients, I've personally dealt with, and I've kind of come to a like a almost like a solid boundary on it. But I wanted to bounce it off you and see how you feel. Um, if you are a very like conscious, woke person, and your partner is not, maybe not yet, but they're just really not into this kind of lifestyle. For a long time I was like, oh, that's fine, like I have my life, someone else has their life, like we have our own, things that we get along with. And it just hasn't been working. So now I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, like I'm not trying to like be too specific, but definitely my future partners will have to be either on my level or like above my level on spirituality and awakening and all this kind of stuff, because I mean, it's, at this point it's like speaking another language with someone, so it's just not working on a vocabulary level. But also on an energetic level, I feel like I've just spent a lot of time in relationships being like, oh, this person will get it together. They'll really step into their power. They'll find their divine self. Like, maybe I could even help. You know, we all like, I can help. I'm here to help.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, they don't. And I'm wondering, how do you feel about having such like a strict, like, this is what has to be a thing in order for me to like have a successful relationship?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I'll just start off with answering it for myself, Right now
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Bali. There's like beautiful women everywhere. There's like hundreds of women in yoga pants all over the place, and my body feels attracted to all of them, you know.
Yeah.
And when I have conversations with all of them, I it becomes very clear to me it would be irresponsible to start a sexual relationship with this person because they are at a very different place than I am, and it would be very confusing for them if I were to either stay with them or leave them afterward. Either way, it's going to be like, why did you get into this relationship? It's self-sabotage is all it would be.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
So it comes down to, for me, it's my personal preference to call it irresponsible to date outside of your consciousness level, right?
I'm
Because
glad you said
yeah, because otherwise it's like, for lack of a better analogy, it's almost like pedophilia,
that. Mm-hmm.
right? Because
I mean,
like,
yeah, like the vocabulary thing alone, I'm like, I'm trauma informed, so I'm using words that people are like, what? They're like, nervous
right,
system, shock trauma, what is that? I'm like, oh,
right,
what?
right. Yeah, because like, a 12-year-old dating a 12-year-old, great. 15-year-old dating a 15-year-old, great. But a 35-year-old dating someone, yeah, I'm 35. A 35-year-old dating someone with um the how would you say it?
Like emotional
Worldview, yeah, the
intelligence.
emotional intelligence and a worldview of a 15-year-old, even if they're 30, even if they're 35, even if they're my age, but if they have the emotional intelligence and the worldview of a 15-year-old, it's irresponsible and it's not helpful for either of us because if I were stepping in to try and save them, then it would be making me into like the daddy figure, which isn't um, helpful for my self-esteem, right? It would
Mm.
be like a control issue, a power dynamic, and then same with them. It would cause the other person to feel insecure and inadequate and all these things because they can't keep up. And it's great to be aware of the dynamic first.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's really amazing. And I just wanted to touch on like why someone might be acting like, you know, that 15-year-old in their 30-year-old body. For anyone who wouldn't know, is normally if you've experienced any sort of trauma at a younger age and you haven't had the time or the space to, you know, deal with it, when you get your nervous system gets shocked, you know, by any sort of trigger, the person within you that's going to be lashing out and responding might not necessarily be your current version of yourself. It's, you know, most likely going to be that 15-year-old that experienced a trauma, or, you know, 5-year-old even that experienced a trauma, like whatever kind of age these like key things were happening at in the history.
Yeah.
So that's a, you know, that's a really good way to look at it, because it makes me feel kind of less bad about wanting to have this like really strict boundary, because yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. And then also maybe touching on like why maybe so many of these people like come into our lives, because I think this is a big epidemic right now of like we bring like all these people are attracted to us into our life, and then we get into a relationship with them, and then you're like, oh no, like maybe this person wasn't brought to me to jump into a very immediate intimate relationship, and now we're in this 6 month thing down the road. Like, what is going on?
Exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I really encourage and applaud your boundary because that's only going to make space for up leveling your life, and it's only going to make space for holding you to the highest standards. It's not going to allow for anyone to drag you down. It's not going to allow for anyone to have a, um, you know, overwhelming sort of mommy dynamic toward you. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's really going to make space for someone who can treat you like a queen, which is really what you deserve at the end of the day.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been one of those like learning lessons. But the cool thing, as we get to the conclusion of our call, is I've seen the emotional intelligence and the emotional reactivity levels that I would have had 5 years ago, and then adding on, 5 years of like everyday work, like yoga, meditation, all the things. I could spend like a whole video just listing all of the
Mm-hmm.
different like
Mm-hmm.
modalities that I've tried to then have this relationship, and where I've done it, I've like consciously uncoupled. I've had a few moments that I'm like, okay, like probably could have handled that one a little differently, like probably could have sent like one less text or
Yeah.
whatever. But like at this point, like I'm so like authentic. I'm like, I don't even give a fuck, like if the fact that I'm like feeling this good and empowered in every decision that I've made, I'm just like, I'm in such gratitude and bliss, because like something like this 5 years ago would have had me end up in like weeks of calling out of work, like physical symptoms, vomiting every morning. I used to just take this in energetically, and I would just let it live in me, and it would take so long to get out of that place.
Wow.
And
Wow. Yeah.
this one, it was almost immediate. And then with my ex passing away, not the ex that I've just had, but the former ex passing away, I it felt like that part of me died. Like the part that needed to hold on to control was just like, whoa, all I want is that clear line of energetic unconditional love with these people. And that thought came and solidified so quickly. It was just like a
Mm,
grace of God, you
mm,
know.
mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, well, I also wanted to touch on you mentioned the 30 days of no communication. And for me, and I know it can be really hard for people, and I know it can be really tempting to communicate and, we should still be friends and all that stuff. Um, I I am I'll just say I am currently very close friends with my former partner, Maga. Actually, she changed her name back to Joanna, but I'm very close friends with her now, and it's only because we had very, very little communication over a period of about 6 months. And so,
Mm-hmm.
we were together for 4 years, and giving ourselves 6 months of not any pressure to be friends was really exactly what we needed. And it helps you to um, rebuild your life and, recreate yourself and let your new identity really sink in. And so if you truly value your friendship with your former partner, giving that relationship some space is the best thing you can do for them and for you.
Yeah, that's very true. And it's easy to play around with and be like, oh, for 3 weeks and 5 days, we're there. It's like, oh, 4 week mark. Okay, we can be best friends now. But, just warning to everyone, there really is no like specific time for a specific person.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to need a couple extra days, or maybe a few less days, or maybe you need to go jump back into the whole thing and then pull yourself out again, and that's okay if that's the lesson that you need to learn. But
Mhm.
what's the most important thing is that, we're taking care of ourselves at the end of the day. And if you're not leaving interactions with said person feeling like the same or better than you felt when you entered the interaction, then you need to take a look and understand that that's probably not a good time to be having these interactions.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And
on.
and and also, like, just to build on that, that's a really great point. If you are craving speaking to your former partner, that's how you know it's not a good time to talk to them.
Like, if you're feeling thirsty for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if it becomes like a need where you're, oh, well, okay, what about when it's like one of those needs? Because I know this happens a lot in breakups where it's like you cannot think about anything else, and is that the crave that you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Where you're going fucking crazy, like pacing around your room with like 5 texts like ready to send. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Right, because that's when you need to go to the gym and work out, go to nature and stick your head under a waterfall, go to a friend's house and have a nice dinner and cry in their lap, go on
And
a,
scream at a pillow.
yeah, go on a Tinder date where you have really clear boundaries of no physical contact, just like give
Yeah.
yourself like a change in energy that will allow you to just experience a, a difference of identity. That's really all that your system needs.
Yeah, just a little switch it up, change in energy. That's so true.
Yeah.
um Even just like journaling, just trying to get it, whatever's inside of you that you feel like you need to get out and like let your ex know, and you need to talk, you need to talk about it, you need them to hold the space, like all these things that sound really good. Stop and just journal it and try to sit with it as long as you can, because that's where the healing work really goes. It's like the
Mhm.
yoga pose when you're in the warrior and you're like, okay, this teacher's kept us here for like 5 minutes. What the hell is going on? And you're
Mhm.
like looking around and you're like, is this serious? That's when the pose is working. That's when
Right.
it's getting into, the fashion. That's when you're really
Yeah.
doing the work.
Right. Yeah. So same analogy, like when you're pacing around the room and you really want to send that text and you really are craving your former partner, that's when it's getting into your fascia. That's when it's releasing the actual trauma from the cells. And that's when it's the best time, instead of sending a text, to go for a sprint around the block.
Yes, find that energetic release in like any other way,
Yeah.
really, any other healthy way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Disidentify with the nervous system. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
this has been so lovely. It's been so
Hmm.
good to talk. I feel like we haven't talked in so long, but
Yeah.
I keep
Yeah.
having
Good job.
memory of when we did the expression exercises,
Yeah.
when I was in Thailand or I was in
Yeah.
Bangkok. And I
Yeah.
remember the sun was rising and I was on the phone with you at this little coffee shop that was like the only 24-hour place next to my hostel.
Oh,
So
cool.
every conversation we have is always so like fulfilling, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing out in the world and out over in Bali, and you were in
Yeah.
Thailand. So
Thank
you've
you.
just been spreading your magic and I love
Yeah.
it.
Thank you so much. And yeah, really grateful, Maddie, for your invitation to be on your Maddie show here. Really always great energy that you bring. So thanks for everything that you do. And you're helping a lot of people. So great work.
Thank you. So are you. And thanks for staying up late to work
Yeah,
with more meditations with Maddie.
my pleasure. And I'll be in
All right.
touch. And thank you
We'll
again.
sleep tight.
All right. Have a great day, Maddie.
Much love. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye.